Hello, AP Psych. Welcome back. This is going to be Memory Part 3. Make sure you've watched Part 1 and 2. Let's get started. Today we're going to talk about storage, retrieval, and Elizabeth Loftus, who was a very important psychologist when it comes to memory. Storage, retaining information. So when we put info into long-term memories, we can divide them into two types: explicit and implicit. So explicit involves facts and general knowledge, like everything you learn in school, and personally experienced events. What happened to you on Tuesday? Where did you eat lunch last weekend? Who was your kindergarten teacher? All of that info. Implicit, sometimes it's without even your awareness, without conscious recall. Skills, motor skills like how to hold a pencil or how to ride a bike, and cognitive skills like counting to 10. And then there's classical and operant conditioning effects. All of that is also implicit memories. Okay, when it comes to retrieval, we're going to talk about a couple different types: recall and recognition. So recall is like when you have to recall something out of the blue, and how do you retrieve that information? Recognition is when you're recognizing something from several choices. So recall is like a free response question or a fill in the blank question. Those are usually tougher than if you have multiple choice. That's usually kind of easier because that is recognition. So what helps us retrieve info? There's something called retrieval cues that help us retrieve info. And to understand how they work, you have to know that memories are held in storage like by a web of associations. So when we want to remember the word fire truck, if there's a little kid and she wants to remember what a fire truck is, in her memory, there's this web of all these other words that are related. And so when she has to travel into her brain, down her neurons, to the word fire truck and retrieve that word, all of these other associations are activated, and they help her get to that concept. So for another example of this is something called priming. There's some interesting research. It's activating an association to a memory helps the recall of that memory. So if you say the word hair and you ask somebody to spell what they heard, they could either spell it H-A-I-R or H-A-R-E. By the way, I misspelled here. Sorry about that. So if you ask them to spell one of these words and they don't know which one because they sound exactly the same, if you showed them a picture of a rabbit right before you asked them to spell it, then they will be more likely to spell it H-A-R-E, because those memories are primed in their brain. There's also a retrieval cue called context effects. This just means that we recall info more if we're in the same space where we learned it. So for example, if you take a science test in your science room, you will remember that information better. They've also done some research on like scuba divers. If they learned a list while they were underwater, a list of words, then they were more likely to remember more words if they were also underwater. Another type of retrieval cue is called a mood congruent memory. A mood congruent memory is that we recall experiences that are consistent or congruent with our current mood. So if you're in a really good mood, you're likely to remember other times you were in a good mood. And if you're in a really bad mood, you're likely to remember other times that you were in a bad mood, because our mood, our emotions, serve as retrieval cues. Some people use these retrieval cues to explain the phenomenon of deja vu. You know, deja vu is when you feel like you experienced something before. So like you walk into a room you've never been in, but you feel like you've been there before. One theory of deja vu is that the current situation triggers retrieval cues of some other similar experience. So that would be one possible explanation of deja vu. With forgetting, okay, there's a lot to know about forgetting. There's 3 reasons we could forget: encoding failure, storage decay, or retrieval failure. So encoding failure and storage decay, I think, are self-explanatory, but let's dig into retrieval failure. There's a lot going on there. One phenomenon that could happen with retrieval failure is the tip of the tongue phenomenon, which is kind of a cool name, I think. We've all done this where we see somebody, we can't remember their name, and it's like it's right on the tip of our tongue, we can't get it out. Sometimes if you're given a cue, you can even say like, oh, their name begins with the letter H, but you still can't get it all the way out. So that's the tip of the tongue phenomenon. That's a retrieval failure. The memory's there, but you can't get it out. Another type of forgetting is called anterograde amnesia. So amnesia is just another word for, you can't remember something. Anterograde means that you have an accident or you have surgery and you can't remember anything after the surgery or the accident. You can remember stuff, your long-term memories from beforehand are intact. So you can remember your childhood, you can remember your best friend and all the events and all your memories, but you can make no new memories. Then there's retrograde amnesia, which is the opposite. When you can't remember anything before the accident or surgery, but you can make new memories. So both of those sound like pretty bad situations. I don't know which would be worse. There's also a type of amnesia that all of you suffer from, and you may not even know it. It's called infantile amnesia. This is when you can't remember anything in your life before about age 2, maybe 2.5. So everybody experiences infantile amnesia unless you have some super ability to have memory, but almost everybody has this. And scientists aren't sure exactly why this happens, but nobody can remember life before about age 2. A couple other things with forgetting. Sometimes our memory, something can interfere with our memory. And so there's two ways this can happen. One is retroactive interference, when new learning interferes with your recall of older learning. So if you're taking Latin in high school and you're learning all these new words, it might interfere with your recall of the Spanish you learned in middle school. So you can't recall the Spanish words anymore because the Latin words get in the way. Similarly, the opposite of that is proactive interference. Prior learning interferes with new learning. So this would be like something you really don't want this example to happen, but if you had an old girlfriend and you broke up with her, but you called your new girlfriend her name, so the prior learning, the prior name is interfering with your learning of the new name, that would be a big problem. Okay, last one for forgetting is source amnesia. Sometimes we remember an event, but we don't know the source that caused our memory to happen. So you might have a memory when you were like 3 or 4 years old of when you went camping and there was a bison in your campground. But do you actually remember the event, or do you remember a picture that your dad had on his phone and he showed you the picture and that's what your memory is from? So you're not sure about the source. Okay, last thing I want to go over is Elizabeth Loftus's research. She uncovered something called the misinformation effect. She showed the subjects of her research this picture, and she asked them to come back a week later and tell her what happened and what they saw. And she just had two different. She just made a change for the control group. Group A, she said that one car hit the car, and Group B, when she showed them the picture, she said it smashed into the car. A week later, she asked, was there any broken glass? And the Group B respondents said yes, twice as much. So just by changing the one phrase, she altered their memory. And this has had huge implications for eyewitness testimony, because if post-event information can interfere with your memory of the original event, then that means eyewitness testimony maybe isn't as reliable as we thought it was. And after Loftus did this, she ended up doing a lot of other research, similar variations on this. Other people did a bunch of research, and this was in the 1990s, and a lot of people kind of came to maybe not trust eyewitness testimony as much. Hopefully we will watch a TED Talk of Elizabeth Loftus explaining some of this. It's really kind of fascinating. The last thing Elizabeth Loftus did after she did the misinformation effect, she did all sorts of research on false memories. These are cases in when people remember events differently from the way they happened, or in the most dramatic case, they remember events that never happened at all. So you can spend some time talking to somebody and you can plant a memory. You can suggest that something happened. And then 6 months later in Loftus's research, she would meet with people again and they would have incorporated this false memory into their actual memory. So, something we have to be careful about. Again, hopefully you'll get a chance to see that in Loftus's TED Talk. Okay, that's it for today. If you have any questions, see me in class or shoot me an email.